Do you ever feel like your life is on autopilot? You wake up, you go to work, you go home, you eat, you sleep, you go back to work, you go home, the weekend comes, you go out, you have fun a little bit, but then you dread work, and you're moving towards this autonomous routine, and that's not serving your purpose. In this video, we're gonna talk about what the anti-self is and why that robotic living is leading you down a direction that is not the direction that you want to be. So what is the anti-self? We're gonna break down 3 things, and that'll be the first one. The first thing we're gonna break down is what is the anti-self? How do we use the anti-self to find our ideal self? And what's the benefit of having your purpose and knowing your direction in life? Which should be self-explanatory, but you're gonna get some there too. Now, the anti-self is a concept that I came into very recently. A lot of my coaching with clients is centered around helping them discover what do they want. And it's a very fun discovery process. But the raw reality is most people don't actually have a clear picture of what they want, but we have a very clear picture of what we don't want. And I started to think, and this is after watching a video on it, I can't remember the name of the creator, but I'll pop a link to the guy or like a little frame you do here. What winds up happening is our brain focuses on negative things, but our brain doesn't focus on positive things. It's really easy for us to latch on to things that we know that we don't want, and thus creating our anti-self. But the reality is if we only know what we don't want and think about what we don't want, we only move in the direction of what we don't want. So we create and reinforce the anti-self. Now, you guys know about me. I used to work in corporate America for about 15 years. I had a high 6-figure job, and I was going through the motions. My life was really good on paper, but inside I was miserable. And you can only go so long in the road of the wake up, eat, sleep, repeat, workout, do it all over again, maybe date night on Friday, and then binging TV and watching Taco Bell. So you have these tiny moments of joy in this large life. A third of your life is at work. If you hate what you do, you hate a third of your life. What winds up happening is, and this is something that happened to me, because I was so stressed out about not liking what I did during the day, I spent more time ruminating, which affected my sleep. So now I'm sleeping less, and it's just this cycle that just continues to perpetuate itself. So I just kept going down this robotic rote routine, and that's how the anti-self is created, because I knew what I didn't want. I knew what hurt. Our brain is geared to recognize pain. It's in the forefront where we just go, man, this sucks. I don't feel good. I don't like this, because your brain wants you to be comfortable. Your brain doesn't really care if you're happy, but your brain doesn't want you to feel bad. So it's very easy to recognize the things that make us feel bad. And so thus, long story short, comes in the anti-self. So instead of going down this long winding road of what makes you feel good, what do you enjoy doing? And this is an exercise that I highly recommend you do. But one of the quickest and most powerful ways to discover the true self is through the anti-self. So the anti-self is the person that you don't want to be. And you can recognize that by looking at, hey, what don't I like about my current reality? And what person will I become or continue to be if I stay down this current path? So now we've identified, okay, what is the anti-self? And so now how do we use the anti-self to create the ideal self? Now the ideal self is the other side of the spectrum, literally. So plain and simple, I hate my job, okay? My ideal self loves his job. I'm lonely. My ideal self is in a happy relationship. I'm poor. My ideal self is abundant. So if you're continuing to do the things that are keeping you in the anti-self, this self is not attainable. But now that you're aware of the anti-self, you can create I feel like the video mirrors, so I gotta do it backwards so it's left to right. So it goes this way, but this is actually my left hand, so it doesn't matter. So ideal self, anti-self, ideal self, whatever. Doesn't matter. In some languages, they go this way. So what you're gonna do then is, how do I create the ideal self from the anti-self? The anti-self is literally just the antithesis. So get out a piece of paper, literally get out a piece of paper. All the exercises that you do in your head, they're great. Meditation's a good place to do things like this when you're processing your thoughts. And something I discovered recently is driving in silence, which makes me sound like a serial killer. But it's a good way to efficiently, and if you like to mash activities together to be more efficient. I literally started driving in the car, short distances, not long ones, because that feels a little crazy. But just processing my thoughts, because if you've been driving for a long time, that becomes a very rote routine activity. And think about that analogy. The anti-self is essentially you mindlessly driving in a car to a place you've been before, because you know you're going to get to the same destination and you've been there so many times, you don't even need to think about it. So creating the ideal self is going to require a lot more intentional thought, intentional activity, because the ideal self is, like I said, it's the antithesis of the robotic rote routine that you're currently in. And I've been there as well. And there are so many moments still in my life where I realize, oh God, I'm doing that robotic thing that I used to do again. So the number one step is just being aware, observing your thoughts, observing your actions. Oh, why do I think that way? Is this a pattern of thought that stems from something else? Once you've found the gap between the ideal self and the anti-self, it's very easy then to redesign your life and create your purpose. So that kind of bleeds into the next one. How do we find our purpose? Now that you've created the gap, all right, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. Boom, boom, boom. I like to use categories. So let's throw up top 5 categories. Would be like abundance or career, love, material wealth, social, family. You could even use like I used to be a huge golfer. I still play sometimes, but okay, where am I with that? Like anything you want to improve and bring into this ideal version of yourself, put in the anti-self. The anti-self is current state. If you keep going down the road, you're going like a robot and you know where you're going to end up. That is the anti-self. Now, ideal self can be pocketed in any given category that you decide that you want to improve or realize that is your true potential, because it's like that saying, you don't actually need to add anything. You actually need to remove things that don't serve you, right? There will be addition, but essentially just roll with me for a sec here. You push down a cork or one of those bobbers that's on like a fishing reel and you push it down, you push it down, you push it down. You don't need to add anything for that to come back up. You literally just need to remove the things that don't serve it and it fires back up to the top. So if you can remove the things that are making you not live your ideal life, your anti-self life, like, dude, if I don't sleep well, I'm cooked. So my anti-self doesn't sleep well. My ideal self sleeps really good. I slept 8 hours last night, which is really good for me. Sometimes I struggle during the week, but I know, because that's top of mind for me, if I don't get good sleep, I will reinforce the anti-self. So use that analogy, figure out what you don't want, that's anti-self, and then get to this angle here. Now, the most important part of this is, why is having your purpose matter? And it's all important, but what winds up happening is the reason you're going through the motions is because you're doing things that you don't care about, that you don't really enjoy, or at the very best are neutral about. And so when you don't have passion or purpose or a mission in your life, you go from doing the thing you don't like to seeking comfort as quickly as possible, because those are the moments when you can actually feel joy and feel good, but it's really just an escape from the chunk of your life that you're unhappy with. And I did that life till I was in my mid 30s, and it was like very, very, very unfulfilling and painful, but I just didn't know any better because, you know, like I said, I was really successful on paper. I had like a fiance that I, had a good relationship with, but I was just living day to day, and the moments were when they were good enough, but there was no like projection for a future plan. It was like the day to day was good enough, but like my life wasn't good enough. And the unfortunate reality is sometimes you have to blow up your life and then piece it back together in order to find what you're truly joyous about. And that's actually what I did. Like, I basically quit my high 6-figure job. I ended the relationship that I was in. It wasn't moving in the direction that I needed to move in. It was like, she's a great person. It just was not going to serve my long-term goal, and really wasn't going to serve her life either. And I didn't want to be in a relationship where there may be resentment down the road. But it's like, I didn't look at anything macro. I was just going day to day because I was just so unhappy that I got enough joy out of these small nuggets to like, it was good enough, but it wasn't my ideal self. And I just kept reinforcing this anti-self. And I knew if I moved up one more layer in my career in this corporate world, that I would essentially have no soul. And if you like working in corporate America and that fulfills you, that's okay. But for me, it wasn't what I was meant to do. And it wasn't until I found my purpose that I actually woke up every day with joy and with passion. And now sometimes I can't sleep because I'm so excited, not because I'm so stressed and I'm so miserable about what I have to do the next day. And there's still stress when you're living your ideal life, guys. Like, building this business that I've been building and building this YouTube channel and working for yourself, it's stressful, but it's a different kind of stress because you're competing against yourself, which is exciting, and you get to kind of create and ebb and flow as you go, and it's a fun challenge. So it's not bad stress, it's exciting stress, and a lot of it is just around limiting beliefs, because once you find your purpose and your ideal self, you're going to run into so many roadblocks, and that's the point. It's because you've been comfortable in the anti-self for so long that you've not given yourself the ability to grow and level up. And unfortunately, your brain doesn't care if you're happy. Your brain only wants you to be safe, comfortable, and in the familiar, in this box. The minute you step outside of this box, your brain goes, whoa, dude, like, I don't know how to control this. Something bad could happen. Is this safe? Are you sure? No. Like, dude, like, we know the stuff that's going to happen in here. We know all the variables. Like, dude, get back in there. Like, that's where we need you to be. And that's the antithesis of life, growth, and fulfillment. So a lot of the uncomfort when you're in the ideal self and when you're moving down the path of your purpose is growth comfort. And it's not bad comfort, but it's going to take someone who is really dedicated to being happy to leave the anti-self, because here's the raw reality. 99% of people are not going to do anything. And I hate saying that. And I only can tell you this after coaching thousands of people, after managing thousands of people in corporate America. You can't lead anyone. You can't drag people uphill. Like, if this video inspires you to go take the anti-self and create the purpose and then move on from there, that is so awesome. And for the 1% of people watching who go out and do that, that's why I'm making this content. It's because this is the content that I wish I had when I was a young man, when I was starting my corporate career, or when I was in the middle of being like, wow, I guess this is my life now, and maybe I'll get used to it. And well, maybe if I surround myself with enough comfort and joys and get like a nicer place and a nicer car and a hotter girlfriend and a better social circle and a nicer watch, and like, I literally just wear a Fitbit now. Like, I used to be like, all right, let's see how expensive of a watch I can get in order to like feel good about myself, and just these little pieces. And it does help. Like, driving to work in a nice car, living in a nice house does help add joy to your life. But when your life isn't joyous, it's like, it can only add so much, right? Like, if 50%, let's say you work, I probably, when you're like really in it in the corporate world or in a job that you hate, it probably takes up more than 40% of your time. But let's just, for simple equation's sake, say a third of the time. If a third of the time is like super unhappy, and then a third of the time you're asleep, so that isn't really anything, and then probably half of the third of the time that you're not working, you're dreading your life. So this math equation got real complicated. It was like 16, 15, 16 and a half. Somebody drop it in the comments. So let's say 16% of your life is actually enjoyable. And so like, you can jam a bunch of cool stuff in there, and maybe you get to like 20%. Maybe you get it to the whole 33% where you're like able to just completely disconnect from your job. I think the higher level your job gets in any field, whether that be corporate America or entrepreneurship, it does monopolize a little bit of your thought. But if you can get to that 1/3 and you're happy that whole time, you're still missing out on that whole other chunk. Like, you're never going to be fully happy. You're going to be in the minority of happiness forever still. So I wonder which side my hands are going to be on. Not important. So raw reality is, guys, is you're going to have to challenge yourself once you find out your purpose, but you're going to wake up excited. I truly found my purpose within the last few years, and it was scary because I had to make huge changes that essentially could impact my life in a way that would make it less comfortable for a little bit. And it was uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie. I remember I hired a coach to help me build my business, and it was like a big chunk of my savings. And I was like, well, okay, I have leverage on myself now, and I literally have no choice but to not fail. And it actually made me work harder and like leave my job sooner than I probably would have, but it was terrifying. Like, I had to spend a lot of time reframing my mind and focusing on limited beliefs and a lot of meditations and like being very aware of my thoughts so that I could flip them around. But the raw reality is you can do it. So many people do it. Like, basically every successful creator on YouTube, every successful coach, every person who's doing something that they love said, I'm going to go out on a limb and push through this and get to my passion point. Not everyone, but like, that's the 1%. And there are tons of people doing what they love, but it's only because they were willing to bet on themselves and believe in themselves and take the leap of faith, because they believed that their happiness was worth it and their happiness was important. And they were willing to pay a small price in the short term for a big gain in the long term. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching this video. I'm like super excited. So I don't notice I'm taking these like huge breaths. I'm like, it's like I sprinted up here to do the video, but I hope you like the lighting. I get a blue light now. Isn't that cool? Anyway, guys, one thing I wanted to mention, I have a free community that you're welcome to join. I'm going to drop it in the description here. Essentially, it's a group of people where we want to, just as a community, like support each other and essentially do what we're talking about, like find your passion. And if you wanted to turn it into a profitable income, that's really the goal. It's because I wish someone said, dude, I can take your hand and get you to where you want to go, where this will replace your job. And I had to kind of figure it out for myself. And I had some mentors and I hired some folks along the way, but it was still super painful. But if I knew what I know now, and that's essentially the knowledge that I'm going to impart on people, and it's completely free to join. I'm in the process of putting up a free course. It's called Passion to Profit. And the biggest focus is, hey, how do I discover my passion? And hey, could I make money off of this? And I think that would be super cool if more people just kind of jumped on that and just started doing what they love, because life is supposed to be awesome. Like, think about this. How many seasons do you have left? So when you think about it like that, it makes it seem very surreal. Like, okay, maybe I'll live to 100. I don't know. Like, how many seasons is that? Yours seems like a long time, but seasons is like, oh wow, I'll only see that many more summers or winters. Or like, don't spend the rest of your life moving towards the anti-self. Do what the 99% won't do and bet on yourself. Believe that you are important enough to have a little bit of short-term pain for a massive long-term gain. And at the end of the day, what we all want is freedom. And you can create freedom. Now take the anti-self and stop the robotic path. Become aware of the direction that you're moving in and use that to create the ideal self and find your purpose. If you need help finding your purpose, join that group. Leave a comment like, hey, give me some help. Like, shoot me an email. Like, I'm happy to help. I love working with you guys. And I'm just so grateful that you're all here and joining me on this journey together. So as always, peace, love, be good.